Moreo grew up in the Grand Balagan mansion where everything seemed perfect from the outside. Her father, Chief Balagan, was one of the richest men in Lagos, known for his power and pride. But inside that golden home, Moreo always felt invisible. Every smile, every compliment, and every expensive gift went to her brother, Ayanda. He was the golden child, the pride of the family, the one everyone believed would carry on the Balagan name. When guests visited, her parents would praise his achievements endlessly while she quietly stood in the corner, ignored like she didn't belong. As a child, she tried to impress them, bringing home good grades, helping her mother in the kitchen, being kind to everyone. But nothing ever changed. Her father's voice would boom with pride whenever Ayanda entered the room. But for Moreo, there were only silent nods or harsh words. She learned early that her place in the family wasn't to shine, but to stay in the shadows. Yet deep inside, she carried a calm strength, refusing to let their rejection destroy her spirit. Whenever Ayanda made a mistake, her parents found excuses. But if Moreo made even the smallest error, she was scolded as if she had disgraced the entire family. Still, she kept her head high, working hard in school and dreaming of one day being free from the mansion that felt more like a cage. Her brother often mocked her ambitions, calling them useless dreams, and her mother would tell her to stop acting like a boy and focus on marriage instead. But Moreo refused to give up. She watched, she listened, and she learned the value of quiet endurance. She started to see through the glittering lies that held her family together, the pride, the favoritism, the emptiness behind all their wealth. While Ayanda basked in praise, she built her strength in silence, her heart growing wiser each day. What no one knew was that the same silence they mocked would one day speak louder than all their noise. For now, she endured, pretending not to notice how invisible she had become. But in her heart, she knew life would someday show who truly carried the Balagan legacy. Not through words, but through actions that mattered. Moreo's life changed the moment she got her admission letter to the university. Instead of celebrating her success, her parents told her coldly that they wouldn't pay a single kobo for her education. Her father said, "We've already spent enough on Ayanda. You're a girl, you'll marry soon." Those words broke something inside her, but she refused to let them define her. She packed her few clothes, left the mansion quietly, and promised herself she would make it without anyone's help. Life outside the Balagan home was hard. She rented a small room with peeling walls, far from the comfort she once knew. Every morning before sunrise, she worked at a local bakery, kneading dough and serving customers with a tired smile. After classes, she rushed to her second job at a small cafe, cleaning tables and washing dishes until late at night. Some days, she was so exhausted she could barely keep her eyes open in lectures. Still, she never missed a class, never complained, never gave up. Her classmates often wondered why she always looked so tired, yet carried such calm determination. They didn't know that every piece of bread she sold, every cup she washed, was another step toward her dream. When she saw other students get money from their parents, she smiled quietly, reminding herself that she was building her future with her own hands. There were nights when she cried silently, missing her father's voice, even if it had been harsh, and wishing her mother would just call to ask if she was eating well. But the phone never rang. The loneliness could have broken her, yet she turned it into strength. She studied harder, knowing that one day, her success would speak for her. Despite all the struggles, Moreo found small joys, kind words from her professors, a customer's smile, the pride of paying her own rent. Each sacrifice became a badge of honor, proof that she didn't need to be anyone's golden child to shine. She learned to depend on herself, to find peace in her pain, and to build a future where her worth wasn't measured by her family's approval. What she didn't know was that her quiet struggle was shaping her into the woman destiny would soon call to rise at every family gathering. Moreo felt like a stranger in her own home. The Balagan mansion would be filled with laughter, music, and the scent of rich food, but the warmth never reached her. Everyone's eyes were always on Ayanda. Her father would proudly call him the heir, boasting about his future plans to lead the family empire. Every toast, every story, every proud smile circled around him like the sun, while Moreo sat quietly in the corner, her presence almost forgotten. When she tried to speak, someone would quickly interrupt, reminding her that daughters don't run legacies. Her aunties would smile at her with pity, whispering how beautiful she was and how lucky some man would be to marry her. No one asked about her studies or her dreams. Even when she brought her university results showing she was top of her class, her mother only said, "That's nice, but you should start thinking about marriage." It felt like no matter how hard she worked, her achievements would always be invisible beside Ayatun's name. Ayatun basked in all the attention, acting like he already ruled the family. He often spoke over her, mocking her ideas and calling her too emotional. Her parents would laugh along, as if humiliating her was some harmless joke. Every time it happened, she swallowed her pain and smiled politely, refusing to give them the satisfaction of seeing her hurt. Inside, though, her heart ached. She couldn't understand how love could be so one-sided within the same bloodline. The unfairness burned quietly inside her. But instead of turning bitter, she used it as fuel. She began observing how everyone behaved, who flattered her brother, who ignored her, who truly cared. She learned more about people than any book could teach. She realized power wasn't in titles or money. It was in strength, patience, and grace. As the laughter around the dinner table echoed, Moreo would sit still, her mind already far away, building dreams that no one believed in. They saw just the daughter, but she was becoming something far greater, someone whose time would come when the world least expected it. Every cruel word and dismissive glance was shaping her story, one that would one day silence them all without her needing to raise her voice. When their father, Chief Balagan, suddenly fell sick, the whole family was thrown into confusion. He had always been a strong, proud man who never showed weakness, so seeing him weak and lying in bed shocked everyone. Doctors came and went, but his condition didn't improve. The family meetings became tense, and everyone looked to Ayatun, the heir, to take charge. Chief Balagan trusted his son completely, believing he would handle everything wisely. But once the control was in Ayatun's hands, his true nature began to show. He started making decisions without telling anyone. The first thing he did was sell one of their father's old businesses, claiming it was no longer profitable. Then he sold a few family lands, saying they were too much to manage. Soon, expensive cars, jewelry, and even ancestral properties started disappearing. Whenever anyone questioned him, he would smile and say it was all for the good of the family. But Moreo could see through the lies. She knew greed had taken over him. While Ayatun was busy enjoying his newfound power, Moreo quietly visited their father at the hospital every evening after work. She would sit beside him, hold his hand, and whisper updates about the world outside. Sometimes he was too weak to respond, but his eyes softened whenever he saw her. She brought him homemade meals, cleaned his room, and prayed beside him. The nurses began to notice she was the only one who came regularly, while the rest of the family only showed up when they wanted to take pictures or discuss money. One night, as she sat beside him, Chief Balagan opened his eyes and whispered, "You've always had the heart of this family." Those words stayed with her. She didn't realize then how deeply her father had noticed everything. Meanwhile, Ayatun continued wasting money, hosting parties, and showing off his new power to friends. He thought the empire was already his. But in the quiet hospital room, Chief Balagan was making a different decision, one that would change everything. Moreo's kindness was speaking louder than Ayatun's arrogance. And though no one knew it yet, the choices being made in that silence would soon shake the entire Balagan family to its core. Moreo quietly returned to the hospital when she heard her father's condition had worsened. She didn't make any grand entrance or announcement. She simply walked in with a calm face and a heavy heart. The nurses recognized her immediately, because she was the only child who came without being called. While the rest of the family argued about money and inheritance at home, Moreo spent her nights sitting beside Chief Balagan's bed, holding his weak hand and praying softly. The machines beeped steadily in the background, but the room was filled with silence, a silence that carried years of unspoken love and regret. Sometimes her father would open his eyes, barely able to speak, but whenever he saw her, a faint smile appeared on his face. He didn't need to say much, his eyes said everything. He saw the daughter everyone ignored, the one who never stopped caring, the one who didn't need riches to show love. Moreo fed him when the nurses were busy, read him his favorite Bible verses, and wiped his forehead when he struggled to breathe. She didn't leave, even when exhaustion made her dizzy. Days turned into weeks, and still, none of her siblings stayed longer than a few minutes. Ayatund only came to ask about the hospital bills and talk about arrangements for the businesses. Moreo stayed silent, watching him come and go, knowing his concern wasn't for their father's health, but for the fortune he believed was already his. Yet she never argued. Her focus remained on her father, the man who had never truly seen her value until now. One evening, as the sun set through the hospital window, Chief Balagan's breathing grew weaker. Moreo held his hand tightly and whispered, "I'm here, Papa." He looked at her one last time, tears in his tired eyes, and with a faint voice said, "You are my true legacy." Moments later, his hand went still in hers. Moreo sat there in silence, tears streaming down her face, but there was no bitterness, only peace. She had been ignored all her life, yet in his final moments, she was the only one he wanted beside him. As she closed his eyes gently, she didn't realize that her quiet devotion had already rewritten the story of the Balagan family forever. After the burial, the Balagan family gathered in the lawyer's office, their faces still heavy with grief but their hearts filled with expectation. The air was tense. Everyone sat quietly, pretending to be sad, but deep down, they were waiting to hear one thing: the name that would inherit Chief Balagan's empire. Ayatund sat in the front row, wearing a confident smile, dressed in an expensive suit, acting like the new head of the family already. He shook hands, thanked people for coming, and spoke as though the inheritance was guaranteed to be his. No one questioned it, not even their mother. Everyone believed it was obvious: the heir could only be him. Moreo entered quietly and took a seat at the back. No one noticed her. To them, she was just the forgotten daughter, the one who never mattered. She didn't come for money or attention. She came because it was her father's final moment of truth, and she wanted to honor him. The room was filled with whispers as the lawyer, a serious-looking man with glasses, opened the brown envelope containing the will. The sound of paper unfolding seemed to silence every breath in the room. The lawyer began to read, his tone calm and clear. "This is the last will and testament of Chief Olalekan Balagan." Everyone leaned forward. Ayatund sat straighter, waiting for his name to echo through the room. But as the words continued, his smile slowly faded. The lawyer paused, then looked up briefly before continuing. The tension was so thick that even the ticking clock on the wall sounded loud. Moreo kept her eyes on the floor, her hands clasped together, her heart beating fast. She didn't expect anything, yet something inside her felt different, as if her father's spirit was present in the room. The lawyer read on, listing the family's vast businesses, properties, and estates. Then he said, "According to Chief Balagan's final wishes, all assets and properties shall be given to." The room went silent, everyone holding their breath, waiting for Ayatund's name. But what came next would change everything. In that still moment, Moreo lifted her head slightly, unaware that her life was about to take a turn no one in that room could have imagined. According to Chief Balagan's final will, the lawyer said, his voice steady but serious. The moment those words left his mouth, the entire room went silent. Every whisper stopped, every eye turned toward him. You could almost hear hearts beating. Ayatund sat tall in his chair, already smiling, as if he was sure the next words would crown him as the new owner of everything. Their mother folded her hands proudly, waiting to hear her son's name. Moreo, sitting quietly at the back, kept her gaze low, her fingers trembling slightly. She wasn't nervous for herself. She was thinking about her father and hoping his wishes would be respected. The lawyer adjusted his glasses and cleared his throat again. "Chief Balagan," he continued, "has made specific instructions about his estate." He glanced at the paper, then at the family. The room grew colder. Everyone leaned in, waiting. A few of the relatives were already whispering, "It must be Ayatund, of course." The tension was heavy. The lawyer hesitated for a brief moment, and that short pause made everyone's heartbeat quicken. Then he began to read. The sound of his voice filled the room, calm and firm. "All my properties, businesses, and investments shall be transferred." He looked up again. Ayatund's smile widened. Everyone could see his excitement. He was already picturing himself as Chief Ayatund Balagan, the new head of the empire. But something about the lawyer's tone changed. There was a weight in his voice, something unexpected. "All shall be transferred," he repeated, "to my daughter, Moreo Balagan." For a second no one moved. The air froze. Then gasps filled the room. Some people turned around in shock to look at Moreo, who who sat completely still, unable to speak. Ayatun's face turned pale, his smile fading into disbelief. Their mother's mouth dropped open, her hand clutching her chest. The lawyer continued reading, but no one was really listening anymore. The words "my daughter, Moreo," echoed in every corner like thunder. Moreo's heart pounded as tears filled her eyes. She couldn't believe what she had just heard. All the years of being ignored, all the pain and silence, it all led to this moment. Her father had finally seen her, and through his will, he had spoken louder than he ever had in life. "I hereby leave the Balogun estate, companies and all properties to my daughter, Moreo Balogun." The lawyer's voice echoed through the silent room like thunder. For a long moment, no one spoke. It felt as if time had stopped. The sound of papers rustling and the ticking clock on the wall were the only things that could be heard. Then slowly, every eye turned toward Moreo. She sat frozen, her breath caught in her throat, unsure if she had heard correctly. Her heart pounded so loudly it drowned out every other sound. Ayatun's chair screeched as he jumped to his feet, his face twisted in disbelief. "That's impossible," he shouted. "There must be a mistake. Read it again." His voice shook with anger and humiliation. Their mother looked completely lost, staring at the lawyer as if hoping he would say it was just a joke. But the lawyer remained calm, holding up the official document. "These are the signed and sealed wishes of Chief Olalekan Balogun," he said firmly. Relatives began to whisper among themselves, their eyes darting between Moreo and Ayatund. Some were shocked, some smiled quietly, realizing the truth had finally come to light. Moreo's hands trembled as she tried to speak, but no words came out. She hadn't come for wealth or revenge, and yet here she was, the rightful heir to everything her father built. Her heart was filled not with pride, but with gratitude. She remembered the long nights in the hospital, the way her father looked at her with love in his final days. Now she understood. He had seen her heart, her loyalty, her quiet strength. Ayatund kept arguing, calling it unfair, saying he was the one who deserved everything. But the lawyer calmly unfolded a second letter from Chief Balogun saying, "Your father left an explanation." The room fell silent again as the lawyer prepared to read. Moreo sat still, her eyes wet, her soul overwhelmed. She finally realized her father hadn't just left her property. He had left her his respect, his name, and his legacy. The girl who was once invisible had now become the face of the Balogun Empire. Everything had changed with one name, her name. Ayatun jumped up from his seat, shouting that the will was a lie. His voice echoed through the lawyer's office, full of anger and disbelief. "This can't be real," he yelled, slamming his hand on the table. "I'm the heir. I handled all the businesses. I deserve everything." His mother tried to calm him, but he wouldn't listen. He pointed at Moreo, his face red with rage. "She doesn't deserve any of it. She abandoned this family." The room turned tense as relatives began murmuring, unsure what to believe. The lawyer stayed calm and opened a small brown envelope. "Chief Balogun knew this reaction would come," he said softly. "He left a letter for this exact moment." The room grew quiet. Even Ayatun stopped shouting. The lawyer unfolded the letter carefully and began to read aloud in a firm voice. "To my children, Ayatun and Moreo, if you are hearing this, it means I am gone. I watched you both grow, and I have seen who you truly are. Ayatun, you may carry my name, but you forgot the meaning of it. You sold our lands, our memories, and betrayed the trust of this family. Moreo, though ignored and forgotten, you stood by me when I was weakest. You cared for me not for money, but from love. You are my true legacy." The words filled the room like fire. Ayatun's shoulders dropped as everyone stared at him in silence. The proud heir who had once looked down on his sister now stood speechless, his eyes darting nervously. Their mother covered her face, tears falling as the truth hit her. She realized how blind she had been, how she had favored the wrong child. Moreo sat quietly, her eyes full of tears, but she didn't speak a word. She felt her father's presence in those lines, his voice protecting her even in death. The lawyer finished reading, saying, "Chief Balogun made this choice out of love and justice." The room was still again. Ayatun's anger faded into shame. Moreo looked around at the people who once ignored her, now staring at her with newfound respect. The truth had finally come out. Loyalty, not pride, had won. And in that moment, the house that once silenced her was forced to listen. Moreo stood in front of the Balagan mansion, the same house where she had once been treated like a shadow. Now it belonged to her, but she didn't feel proud or arrogant. She felt peaceful. The power that once made her family greedy no longer held the same meaning for her. She didn't see it as a chance for revenge, but as an opportunity to do something good. Her father's words in the letter had touched her heart deeply. He wanted her to carry his name with honor, not anger. So instead of chasing luxury, she made a decision that surprised everyone. Moreo used part of her inheritance to build a scholarship fund in her father's name, the Balagan Foundation for Education. She wanted children who had been ignored or forgotten, just like she once was, to have a chance to follow their dreams. She visited schools, met students, and shared her story to inspire them. The same people who once mocked her now respected her for her kindness and strength. Even business partners who once only cared about Ayanda now came to her for advice, amazed at her calm confidence. Her mother, filled with regret, came to her one afternoon with tears in her eyes. "Moreo, I was wrong," she said softly. "You were always the heart of this family." Moreo hugged her and replied, "It's okay, Mama. I forgive you. We all make mistakes." When Ayanda finally came, his pride was gone. He stood quietly and said, "I'm sorry, Moreo." She looked at him and smiled gently. "We are still family," she said. "Let's build something better together." Through forgiveness, Moreo healed not only her own pain but also her family's brokenness. She proved that grace was more powerful than wealth, that kindness could restore what bitterness destroyed. The same people who once ignored her now saw her as the true strength of the Balagan family. Her story became a reminder that sometimes, the one who is forgotten ends up being the one who saves everyone. Hi, besties two hearts, thank you so much for watching till the end. Cherry Blossom, if you loved Moreo's story of grace and strength, please don't forget to like, thumbs up, comment speech balloon, and subscribe bell for more inspiring stories. See you in the next one. Sparkling Heart.